You know, the Greek philosopher Aristotle observed that we are what we repeatedly do. And excellence then is not an act, it is a habit. And I greet you on behalf of this wonderful occasion, this observance of Dr. Martin Luther King, and I'm honored to be invited to be a part of this observance, and I thank this hard-working committee for organizing this wonderful gathering this morning. My name is Gregory Pittman. I am a judge here in Muskegon County, and I'm not up for election until 2018, so I'll start being really nice in about another 6 months or so. I have the honor of sharing just a brief thought with you all this morning as we prepare to hear from our esteemed keynote speaker and my fraternity brother, Mr. Harvey Hollins. And I would also encourage you to take part in and enjoy the roundtable Advancing an Urban Agenda that's going to take place at 10 a.m. at Baker College. I think that is a wonderful adjunct to this observance. You know, I quoted Aristotle a little earlier, and I find that quote to have significance today because we're here to celebrate the life and honor the work of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. And if there be some truth in that idea that we are what we repeatedly do, then the simple question becomes for us, what do we repeatedly do? And accordingly, what are our habits? For instance, are we repeatedly in our daily affairs attempting to be just and fair, therefore allowing justice and fairness to be our habit? Are we repeatedly and daily purveyors of peace, causing peace to manifest as our own personal habit? Are we who serve and lead, and there's so many in this room who in fact do that? Are we selfless and are we circumspect in our governance, resulting in an habitually unselfish and insightful government? If we're here this morning and our response to these and like questions is anything less than yes, then our challenge is clear. Dr. King was all about America changing and improving its habits. The truth of the matter is that the future of this community and our country, indeed our world, is dependent upon all of us getting our habits in order. With that, I greet you, I welcome you, thankful to see you all here in this room so full. And I hope that as we enjoy this wonderful meal, enjoy the entertainment that we've heard from Green Book, Dr. Robert Moore, my mentor, and his group, as we listen, as we congregate and share and network and speak with one another, that those things and that goodwill that is built up in this room today, this morning, is not left in this room this afternoon, but that we move ahead and we continue to try to give life and credence to the work, to the life, and to the sacrifice of a man like Dr. Martin Luther King. Thank you for these few minutes. I'm going to get out of the way and let this program proceed. God bless you all.
Good morning, folks. Good morning. You might also know that Dr. King spent much of his time discussing a dream that he had. And the dream was that we all would come together in a way similar to what we're coming together today. Now, if you also studied Dr. King, you know that he strongly believed in a deep and abiding way that a dream without a plan is only a wish. And he encouraged us to do things that would allow us to move forward in multiple ways. Now, many of you have on your tables a document from the Muskegon Area Promise. Looks like this. Now, this promise is something that would allow our students in Muskegon County, in the Muskegon Area Intermediate School District, to attend community college here for free and substantially pay for attending Baker College as well. So this is something that we in this community are doing as a promise to our kids, supported by the state legislature, supported by the governor, and supported by many of you in this room. So please, at 2 o'clock this afternoon, if you have an opportunity, visit. I believe this is going to be at the MAISD, Dr. Severson? The Chamber. It's going to be at the Chamber, sorry, at the Chamber of Commerce. The announcement of the funding for the promise, which means in a very, very substantive way that your children, our children, will be able to attend Muskegon Community College and Baker College without paying a dime. I think that's extraordinary. I'm Dale Nesbury, by the way. I'm the president of this august institution, and I'd like to welcome you to this very, very important and long-standing event. And on behalf of our Board of Trustees, and I know I'm going to try to get them to stand. If my board could stand and please be recognized. Come on, trustees, please be recognized. Thank you very much. Our trustees they're the group that make things happen at this institution. With their leadership and guidance, we're able to accomplish some of the things that you might see ongoing here on our campus, in the community, including the former YMCA building downtown and so forth, but they make it happen, and thank you for that. Now, another job that I have is to thank all of our staff who made this happen. I know you're somewhere in the room, but thank you all for your efforts, Trinette and our entire team, Trinette, Lottie Hartz, and also, and finally, I would recognize each one of you individually, but I know we have a number of individuals here who are competing, running for office, who are elected officials, who were elected officials, and who would like to be elected officials. So as a former political science professor myself, I love this. But if any elected official or someone running for political office, if you could all please stand to be recognized by this crowd. Please, folks. Always. Thank you very much. And with that, I will turn the dais over to one of my colleagues, I believe Mr. Ed Garner.
Good morning. I think besides Mr. Hollins this morning, I may actually have the best part of the program, in my opinion. And that is being able to honor this morning, Mr. Theodore Nathaniel Williams, Jr. On November 2nd of last year, at the age 63, Ted unfortunately passed away, and we lost him in our community. But we know he's a strong advocate of the community. He's a strong advocate of this Unity Breakfast from its inception and going on now its 20th year. We really want to take the time and acknowledge all his accomplishments. We won't have time to do that all here, but I would like to point out several of the things that he did and contributed to this particular community. We know we're going to miss him and all the hard work that he done. I look at this as 3 parts to Ted. When I think about this, I think about him personally, professionally, civically. You know, Ted was homegrown. He was born and raised right here, Muskegon Heights, graduated from Muskegon Heights High School, went on to further his education at Western Michigan University, Penn State University, then receiving his law degree also from Wayne State. Came back to this community, probably had other options, but came back to this community and made his career in law, representing a number of institutions around here, including the county, city of Muskegon. Also becoming a lead partner in the law firm of William Hughes, P. LLC. Mr. Doug Hughes is with us, his partner, Mr. Doug Hughes, is with us this morning as well. And he was really engaged in, the Bar Association and all those things in his professional career. And that's, I think, a lot of us knew Ted from his professional career as a tireless worker in that endeavor. But there's other two sides to Ted that I just want to pay attention to, and that is the civic side of Ted. He cared a lot about the community, he cared a lot about people. He was heavily involved in the Urban League at the time, becoming its president, board chair as well. He's a founding member of the JCs in Muskegon Heights. Also sat on various committees and boards. So we saw that civic side of Ted too, and he cared a lot and greatly about that. And then lastly is the personal side of Ted. And the personal side of Ted, just like many of us, was a husband at one point. He's a father. He's a brother to his family. He's a stepdad and stuff as well, grandfather as well. And so he cared a lot about that. He already cared really a lot about his granddaughter. And so we didn't know him as much in that vein, but we knew him still as a tireless worker, ever reaching out, ever keeping vigilant. Ted, also, I did attend his funeral services, and also on a personal note too, if I can remember right, I think they said Ted also enjoyed listening to a little bit of James Brown's music. So we don't have any James Brown this morning, but I just wanted to throw that out there, that he wasn't always work, he did play some as well. Ted left us in his office. I heard that Ted had two kind of sayings in his office, two quotes from the great Vince Lombardi. I'm going to talk about one quote this morning because I think it's appropriate for today's event. And that has to do with success. And I'm going to change the quote up a little bit. So I'll read the quote to you, but then I'm going to change it up a little bit to make it relevant to our community here. The quote says, "The difference between a successful person and others is not a lack of strength, it's not a lack of knowledge, but it is rather a lack of will." So I'm going to flip that a little bit. I'm going to say, really, the difference between a successful community, our community, if we really wanted to be successful and prosperous, it's not a lack of our strength, it's not a lack of our knowledge, but the will to do what's necessary to be done. I want to leave that quote with you. That's one of Vince Lombardi's quotes, hung up on Ted's office, in addition to another one as well. We're going to miss Ted. He's inspirational to many of us, friend, colleague, to many of us. And his legacy really is in his strength and his will and his commitment to excellence in this community. At this time, I want to bring up Mr. Doug Hughes from the law firm of Williams & Hughes PLLC. And we want to present a small token of our appreciation for Ted's commitment to this community. This award was going to be received by his daughter, Sharita Johnson, who could not be here this morning. So Mr. Hughes is graciously accepting this award on behalf of her. The plaque simply reads, ML Unity Award given to Theodore Williams, Jr. in appreciation for the support and demonstration of justice and service to our community. Stated on this day from the MLK Unity Committee and Muskegon Community College. So Mr. Williams, accept this award.
Thank you very much. We do miss Ted at the office. He was a large presence there. He left a large legacy. He would never allow me to have a retirement party for him because he never wanted to retire. So why don't we just do that now and just give him a big hand clap for what he did, and we'll wrap it up. Mr. Williams, thank you.
Let's join our hearts in prayer. It is given to only a few people, O God, to rise above the crowds and become symbols of hope and passion to all of us. We thank you for these persons, from Moses and Jesus to Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. and for the way they remind us of your care and grace for all the people of the earth. We praise you today for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and for the qualities that shaped his life, for a strong sense of justice that regarded all souls as having importance in your eyes, for an unshakable belief and gentleness that would not permit him to turn to violence in order to achieve his dreams, for a commitment to sacrifice that led him forward without regard for his own safety, and for an ultimate trust in you, O Holy One, that you would never abandon those who stand up for truth and righteousness in the world and in our very communities. We mourn what happened to him, the pain and degradation, and finally his death. But we celebrate the dream for which he stood, of a society where the lion and the lamb would lie down together, and the children of all races and backgrounds would mingle together in sweetness and harmony of spirit. Help us to be as committed to that dream as he was, to care as much about the poor and disenfranchised as he did, to be prepared to pay the price that he paid to ensure its ultimate success. Teach us to love all men and women as our brothers and sisters, and to care as much about their welfare as we care about our own. And grant that we shall always have heroes whom we admire for their moral clarity, their unremitting courage, and their passion for justice, righteousness, and equality for all your children. We pray this in the name of God, who is love. Amen.
Good morning. To the committee who asked me to stand before you today in the introduction of our speaker, I want to say thank you. This is truly an honor for me because it's the one time of year when I am most inspired, because we all come together across racial lines, across religion, across party lines, and we come together to celebrate a legacy that is so great and that can continue to propel us forward if we embrace that. So I challenge us this morning to embrace that legacy that we all come together this morning to celebrate and continue to do the work on the outside of these walls that need to be done for this community. My name is Kimberly Sims. I am the mayor of the city, the great city of Muskegon Heights, and I want to say thank you so much. If you all could just entertain me for one moment. I don't know if you all knew, but we know Muskegon Heights has an 8th council member, and that's Preston. And I just want to say, welcome, Preston. We call him the 8th council member, so thank you all for that. The first time I was introduced to Mr. Hollins, I was quite intrigued. And my thing was, I need to pick his brain. This man has a wealth of information and knowledge, and I need to have it, and he's willing to share it. And that's one of the things that stuck with me with Mr. Hollins. So it was important to me this morning, not only to know the things that are before you on this sheet, which I will not read to you, was to know what makes this man tick. And so I asked him, Mr. Hollins, what is it that makes you tick? And here we are once again, me unbeknownst, right? We have the same thing in common. He said, it's my children, my girls, that make me tick. That's why I do what I do. That's why I do what I do. It's the children of this community that make me tick. So we have that in common, and I appreciate that. Then we all know we love Detroit. I know I love Detroit, right? So I said, well, Mr. Hollins, when I go to Detroit next time, where do I need to go eat? And he shared with me Central Kitchen. That's where he enjoys to eat and dine with his family. So there's a tidbit for you all, Central Kitchen. So we can all come back together and see what Central Kitchen's about, because I'm going. Right? Mr. Hollins was born in South Haven, Michigan, and holds a BA from Kalamazoo College and a Master's of Public Policy degree from the University of Michigan's Gerald R. Ford School of Public Policy. He also is a member of the Omega Psi Fraternity Incorporated and Prince Hall's Mason. But again, when I asked Mr. Hollins, what is the proudest accomplishment you have, he didn't share with me his degrees or his accolades, but he shared with me something that's, again, very dear to my heart. When he accepted Jesus Christ as his Savior, was the thing that he is most proud of. So this morning, if you could stand with me and give this distinguished person just a round of applause, a good Muskegon County welcome, Mr. Harvey Hollins.
Thanks, Mayor Sims. Appreciate that warm welcome. Thank you all for having me here. To the President Nesberry of this distinguished community college, to my fraternity brother, Honorable Judge Pittman, Ed Gardner, thank you for all the stuff you've done in setting me up. So Ed picked me up this morning at the hotel. He had a long trench coat on and a fedora, and his car was literally parked right on the other side of the doors that go in the hotel. He was right in the drop-off zone. And I'm thinking, well, it's cold outside, So, I'm thinking this is, okay. Well, I said, isn't it warm to you? And he said, yeah, it's a little bit warmer, but he was really bundled up. But when we parked coming here, we parked way down the road, and then he was walking without his jacket. I'm like, so what was that this morning? You have a funny guy here, so I'm gonna let you know that. To State Representative Hughes, thank you for the work you've done on the promise. This is extremely important, and also to President Michael Helson. I'm not sure where he is right now, but I had a great time with him from Baker College at the dinner last night. So I thought I'd take advantage of my time on the panel by taking advantage of a keynote spot. So that way, in case I don't have enough to say with all these mayors sitting on the stage, at least I have my day in the sun right now. I hope you can see the screen. And I'm going to run through something I think you might be interested in. And from there, what I'll do is hopefully entertain some questions, and we can get into some dialogue. So when I joined the administration in September 2011, the governor came to me, and I report to him, and he said, look, Harvey, we want to have an urban agenda for the state of Michigan. Now, this is a very common thing. Most elected officials have had urban agendas, so I began to look up this stuff. And, sometimes you go through a state of shock, and the thing that you learn about Governor Snyder is that when he says certain things, he really means it, and he has a phenomenal memory. So he wrote down this little thing on a sheet of paper, really, really tiny, and wrote several notes down and gave me the sheet of paper. I'm thinking, okay, I'll keep the sheet of paper. And 2 weeks later, he asked me about the little sheet of paper. And I'm thinking, where did I put that little sheet of paper? And he knew everything he wrote on a sheet of paper. And I said, oh, that's right, Governor, that's right. And so I had my staff ransack the entire office to find that sheet of paper. But the urban agenda is interesting. I found the document in 1973. Governor Milliken had an urban agenda. And you can lift 80%, or you can lift 20% of that document out, just swap the data out, and you retain 80% of the information in the document, because what happens between administrations is that one administration comes in, does something cool, the next administration comes in, erase the cool thing, and do their cool thing. The next administration comes in and erase the cool thing before them and erase it. So what we find ourselves is we can't capitalize and build upon the successes of administration, irrespective of the party. And that's really critically important. So in 1973, the issues facing the state of Michigan in terms of your larger cities and metropolitan areas still remain the same. Just the data has changed. And we can't do that over and over again. That's insanity. So as I was thinking about how to deal with this, I like jazz. So as I'm not sure how, oh, there we go. Let me make sure this works here. Okay, so basically what was, oh, there we go. Wow. Okay, so what was supposed to be happening here?
3 o'clock in the morning.
You're going to see the history of Detroit. And
how she can make it right, yeah. when you really feel good about somebody.
Well, this is kind of an interesting thing. It's kind of like, I tell you, okay, we're going to skip past this one. Just turn it down. Okay, so the history of Detroit basically is a story of a city that grew fast. And if this coordinator, right, it would have been real cool. You would like, man, that guy was really good, and just on this one slide. And basically, it shows that how a city grows, and you have a dependency on your population. Most of the cities in the state of Michigan have grew because of the auto industry. They grew real quick. But when auto industry began to lose real quick, the city also lost real quick in population. So we can look back and we can point fingers at certain decisions of elected officials who were there, but when you're dealing with a loss of population and a revenue base, it's very difficult to continue the operations of a city. So, so the thing I want to do, when the governor basically asked me to do this, one of the things we wanted to do is to look at this thing from a high level and then drill down into the problem. In the high level, really, at 30,000 feet, you're dealing with population and revenue loss in a city. And you're really challenged with doing things to make it an attractive place for people to live, work, and play. So the promise that you have here is an attractive component. You know, Kalamazoo Promise, of where I'm from, really grew that city. It turned the population trend around. People went to Kalamazoo just to take advantage of the Kalamazoo Promise, where, you know, if you're graduating 4 years high school at in that community, you are guaranteed full ride tuition. Tuition at any college or university, private or public, in the state of Michigan for 4 years. You know, that's a powerful incentive. You know, and so that's an attractive point. Kalamazoo used to have an industry. They had paper industry and other things there. That crashed and the city went down. So population and revenues, and also the distribution of wealth is a complex thing. So when you look at Detroit's population here, Detroit's population, as you see, grew extremely fast. And between 1940 and 1980, 51% of the state of Michigan's population resided in the Detroit metropolitan area. And Detroit had 28% of that. That's a lot of people and a lot of control. Today, Detroit has 7% of the state's population, and the metropolitan area has about 40%. Now, what's happening in the city of Detroit after we went through the bankruptcy, we're starting to see growth for the first time this year. Detroit was bleeding population when I first took this job at 1,000 people a month. But that's the same thing in Washington, D.C. I'm not sure last time you've been to Washington, D.C. But when I used to travel back and forth to D.C. working for AARP in the late 90s to early, around 2000, 2001, that city was losing 1,000 people a month. It was the murder capital of the world at that time, if you remember. I used to go to a place called Ben's Chili Bowl in Washington, D.C. Great place to go on U Street. When I first went there, you know, it was like a day like this. It was not any snow on the ground, but it was a little chilly, so I had a little trench coat on. I finished my comfort food, and I was standing outside, literally, I would say no more than 10 to 15 yards away from the door. So the guy came out and says, look, you know, guy, you probably want to stand inside here and wait. And I said, why? I mean, it's a great night out here. He says, trust me, when the cab comes, we'll let you know. What he was telling me is unsafe to stand that close because the crime rate in that city was that high, to stand 15 yards away from a door, a place of business. Now, if you don't stand outside, you miss U Street. Restaurants, Brownstone, Ben's Chili Bowl has doubled its size. It's just a wonderful thing. You know, so cities do these things. They ebb and they flow. And cities like Benton Harbor or Muskegon Heights or Muskegon, Kalamazoo, Jackson, you all will ebb and flow. Your strategies like this, the promise, will help move it forward. When you look at the city of Flint, and this is the census in 2010, the city of Flint in 2000 had 124,000 people. That population is down from 200,000 at its peak when it was at its high. In 2010 is at 100,000 and currently 102,000, and currently is slightly under 100,000 people. Okay? The city bleeding population cannot turn itself around. And the things that we're dealing with in Flint doesn't help. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get a couple questions on that, so I'm not gonna go too much more into that one. So, I said population and revenue, and I'm not sure if you can see this chart that clear. So, two professors out of Harvard University in 2010 did a study, and they asked Americans, what do you think the distribution of wealth is? Now, these are in quintiles, and so each quintile is representative of the population. The red is the top quintile in terms of wealth. And then as you go down to the end of the chart to your right, then that is the bottom part of the quintile in terms of wealth. So Americans, when they asked the question, they asked 5,000 people, where do you think the distribution of wealth is? They said 20%, the wealth is about 50% is controlled, or 60% is controlled by the top wage earners, or in terms of wealth in the United States. Okay. They then asked the question, what's the ideal distribution of wealth in the United States? And this is the thing they came up with. It gives the biggest portion to the top earners in the United States, and then it kind of gives a nice little cushion for the folks at the bottom. But when you look at the actual distribution in 2009, it really looks like this. And that's the distribution of wealth. Now, I'm gonna put a pin in here. This is a snapshot in time, right? Because people, in terms of income and what they earn, always move up the scale. I'm pretty sure that the guy who in California hit that Powerball probably was not in that top, but he is now today, right? And and people who graduate from Muskegon Community College may have started at one place, but tomorrow they'll be in a different place. So I want to be very careful when we show wealth distributions that this is not static, and there's always movement with these charts. If you spread it out in terms of cash, this is what it looks like, actual distribution of wealth, where you have the poor really at the one end, and I wish I had a little pointer thing here, but I'm scared to hit any buttons. And in terms of distribution of wealth, and then you have people who are completely off the chart. When I look at it a different way in terms of policy debate, and I asked the question, so why can't we really make progress in terms of really investing where it needs to occur? It's because most of the policymakers and the discussions belong with people with, and I believe in that red arrow. That red arrow is my arrow, okay? You're not gonna find, Dan Gilbert wanting to run for office, with exception of Mr. Trump. Most people are not going to be at the far end of the scale. And so the policy debate really is over limited resources among groups. And that makes this conversation of how you set an urban agenda extremely difficult. I remember when I was in college, it was always the soccer mom conversation versus the inner city conversation. It's evolved since then. And so the challenge in terms of talking about how do you fix things is a little different. The syntax is different. And fixing things doesn't always require money on the front end, or sometimes on the back end. So we have to develop an angle of attack and define and implement success in our central cities. Michigan has 14 metropolitan areas that's home to 82% of the state's population. 94% of the state gross domestic product and exports, and 96% of the advanced degrees. 14 areas in Michigan. At the center of each area are your central cities. And so to ignore the challenges in your central city is to cut our nose to spite our face. So we have to do it. We have to do it. So when you look at the angle attack, the governor said, look, Harvey, we want you to develop this urban agenda. And so one of the things we wanted to do in moving forward is develop a goal. What I did is pull about 300 individuals around the state from 3 areas. And some folks from this area did participate in the conversation, Grand Rapids was the central meeting place, Kalamazoo, Flint, and Detroit. We asked the question, if you had an urban agenda, what should the objective be for the urban agenda? Let's just not play with this. Let's go with an objective. And this is what this group came up with. Become a destination for employment, quality of life for the purpose of retaining and attracting residents, encouraging the entrepreneurial spirit, growing and retaining human and intellectual capital, and focusing on vibrant urban cores. That's a lot, but trust me, this thing was like 3 times as long by the time we got done with it, so we had to whittle it down. And this is it. This is what your promise is attempting to do, and other things that cities attempt to do, is captured in being vibrant, being a place that, oh, when I came through Muskegon, I want to go back because there's this cool restaurant there. And I want to keep coming back, oh, and eventually I want to stay. So that's what you're attempting to do. So this group came up with 13 areas of focus, and I got all 13 and I want you to see them, but we actually narrowed it down to 12. And each one of these themes, what we call focus areas, they have objectives, they have metrics to them, and they're measurable. So the question is what can the state do? Not necessarily everyone else, but since this is a state question and we're going out and asking people, what can the state do in terms of measuring its impact on arts and culture? That's a different question of what we should be able to do all together. More funding. Arts and culture needs more funding. That's not the question. How do you measure success? Whatever resource you get should be the first question you ask. Schools need more funding, great, but how do you measure success with the more resources you receive? I mean, what is the objective? If the objective is just to graduate individuals and just turn them out so they move in Chicago, maybe we're missing the picture here a little bit. So it's a different question when you begin to put metrics down on your objectives and tie those things to money. And keep in mind, the money thing is along this distribution curve right here. Again, a static snapshot in time. We expect those individuals who are at the end of this thing to begin to move up. And there are folks who have lost a lot of wealth who find themselves on the other end of the scale. So this is a dynamic process as we speak. And that's the challenge in terms of how we attack this issue. I have a friend of mine who's a very good friend of mine, and he's Jewish, and he'll always say, Harvey, you never boil the ocean, boil a pot. And I just adopted that. And sometimes when we tackle problems, we tend to take them on huge. One of the things that was very interesting working for AARP, we had this thing called direct action organizing, which means that you look at your goals, you operate within your organizational capacity, and you don't take on a goal that your organization can't handle. A lot of people do that and they get frustrated because they're not making movement because their objective is bigger than who they are, and they don't involve other people in it to make their objective achievable, right? And then you begin to focus on your targets and you apply your tactics so you can achieve your goals. So boil a pot, not the ocean. So one of the things we did in boiling a pot, now I like these pictures, and I'll run through a couple of these things, because when you look at cities and you look at the challenges, crime, education, unemployment, lack of opportunity, you just go through the whole list, and it can get, you may want to drink a couple glasses of wine or something like that after you really look at these things. But the thing about ingenuity and human ingenuity is always fascinated me, that no matter what the obstacle is, that people somehow find a way of getting over things. These are little trails through mountains. I mean, these folks built a bridge along the side of a vertical mountain. I mean, this is amazing what people can do when they really come together and they think their problems through. I had a chance to go here. This is called Plaza Verde in Colorado. And the ancestors to the Pueblo tribe basically built their homes in this mountain. I mean, this hill. This is like 5,000 feet above ground. And so it's amazing where they built their dwelling. But they did it because they had to solve a problem. And it's amazing that the problems we have in urban America, in our central cities, can't be solved because we can't find a way to come together. And so we wanted to start boiling pots. Now, we had this urban agenda. We got all the data. We had our subject matter experts come in and tell us, okay, this is what you're going to do if you're going to focus on public safety. We had all this stuff listed out. I went back to the business community and the stakeholder community and said, okay, here's the urban agenda. And they looked at it and said, we can't do anything with this. And I said, why? He says, but because there's no playbook with this. And the light bulb went on and said, oh, that makes a lot of sense. What the community was looking for is a state to lead in some initiatives that would have impact. Now, what we did, we developed a list of projects that would be our playbook. So the only way a project can get involved with the urban agenda is if it moves more than one metric and 2 different focus areas. We've isolated ourselves in a box. So if you're focused on arts and culture and you're not talking about anything related to education or mobility, you're missing the picture. And that's what we do. We fund the thing without thinking about the impact on other things related to it. So what we tried to do is develop a series of projects that had impact in multiple focus areas. And if it didn't have impact in multiple focus areas, we were not interested in talking about that project. Second thing we wanted to do is that thing had to be scalable to any city in the state of Michigan. So if we did it in Detroit and we can't do it in Muskegon, we're not going to do it. Simple as that. And if we did it in Muskegon and we can't do it in Detroit, we can't scale it up, it's a waste of our time. Not to say that the project is a bad thing, it's just a waste of our time. Because I need to convince representatives and senators across the state that the investment over here can be done in their backyard too. And we lose sight of that, and we become very polarized in our politics, and we can't really move this thing forward. So that's what we did. We tried one of these projects, and I'll walk you through this, and then we'll take some questions. I call it the School Anchor Project. It's called the Neighborhood Stabilization School Anchor Strategy, NSSA, okay? Now, what we did with schools, we're saying, okay, and when you look at Detroit, Detroit is an interesting place. And this is Detroit, but we're getting ready to start this project in Flint and some other state areas around the state right now. The blue areas is where the city is more dense. And when you look at how population loss in the city of Detroit, the city is losing population from the inside out, and people are moving outside the city. Not too far outside the city, but just outside the city. So we asked a group of demographers that included some folks on our team, but also Data-Driven Detroit. We asked the school demographers to come up with a strategy and tell us where the population in the city of Detroit is losing population the slowest. We knew that the city is losing population all over the place. We wanted to know where they were losing the slowest. And we wanted to look at where the investments are and see if we can do strategies outside the investment area. So this little area with the little circle and that little, and maybe you didn't see the little T, we called it the upside down T. The T is Woodward and Jefferson. That's where you see the bulk of the investment in the city of Detroit today. That area is going to be okay. And if you have not been on Woodward and Jefferson most recently, you're missing a renaissance that's happening in the city of Detroit. That's driving a lot of change in the city of Detroit right now. Thanks to Dan Gilbert and some other folks who've been made major investments. But right now, when I joined Wayne State University in 2004, the square foot rental amount was about $1.79 per square foot for rental space. When you get to the $2 mark in terms of that, in terms of rental per square foot space, then the market is very the market drives itself. It's organic at that point. And investors will come in, and you don't have to subsidize the investment, okay? That's happening because they're above the $2 per square foot rental rate market space in the city of Detroit right now in that area. Midtown, where Wayne State is located, when I joined, was about 67% occupancy. Today it's 99.5. And so if you build a new development in Midtown right now, you'll have a waiting list of folks before you even break ground on the development. That's what's happening in the city, okay? But that's not where our problems are, you know? Our problems are in the neighborhood. So basically we asked the city, these demographers to come up with these areas that are losing population the slowest. They came up with 9 areas. We picked 3 of the 9 as pilots. And we went to the school district and we said, okay, Tell us what schools that you're not going to close in the city of Detroit, and you're going to hold yourself to that. You're going to fall on the state before you close that school. The city of Detroit has 110,000 seats available, and there are only 47,000 students. You can double the size, the number of students in the city of Detroit tomorrow, and you'll still have seats available. They'll have to close schools. And the problem with closing a school in the neighborhood is like dropping an H-bomb in the neighborhood. It really is. It devastates the neighborhood. First, the people who come and rip off the metals, they get in there, and then, then you have squatters in there lighting fires, and then you're a neighbor across the street and you're seeing all this activity, then you move. And then you create a ring of foreclosures around the school, and it's just like watching a horror flick. And Detroit has some serious problems. I mean, they turn these vacant houses into dogfighting kennels, and they fight these dogs, and it's crazy. The crime just goes crazy and out of rocket. So we wanted to do something to really mitigate that. 3 areas. We picked 2 schools in each area for effort. Now, what happens around these schools? We picked a half-a-mile radius around the school. We're saying, okay, this is our epicenter. This is ground zero. This is where we do battle right here. We eliminate the foreclosures and blight in that little half-a-mile radius around the school. We turn the lights on, make sure it's well lit. We make sure that we're dual-purposing activities in the school, meaning that with the state, can we do services in the school where the parents don't have to come down to a state building downtown while trying to drop their kids off and go down to and get their job on time? So we moved all our social workers into these schools, called the Pathways to Potential, and you guys have a similar program here. And then we wanted to create a security zone, and this is kind of new, and the National Corporation for Community Service, which runs the AmeriCorps program, piloted program in Michigan called the Urban AmeriCorps Public Safety Program. Those little blue lines around those circles, and each one of those circles is a school. And the half-mile, the little circle, the white circle around that is the half-mile radius for strategy. And I'll drill down to this real quick. And then the blue area is the AmeriCorps Public Safety area. Okay, AmeriCorps goes in 3 years, and they do everything from tracking crime to communication in the community. What they do is really impressive. And they use the residents in those areas. They don't drop people in from Boston in here, right? They train the residents, and so what you leave behind are folks who are engaged at a very high level, and what they do, they work with the sheriff, the local police, the state police, the prosecutor's office, and the Department of Corrections. And they run a CompStat system, which means that they drill down in the crime data on every 2 weeks. And they invite the community to come in and have the discussion. And they go through real pictures and people who they know, the community knows, who are actually committing some of these things. And they can take these folks off the street because they say, oh, I know Bobby, he's over there. And what we're seeing in Osborne, and Osborne is in this little area here. I'm hoping I'm gonna shut it. Oh, here it is, right there, boom. Right there, Osborne. Osborne is the most violent crime, one of the top 5 most violent crime zip codes in the United States, according to the FBI. You do not want to be walking around the street at night around Osborne. But we've seen a 10% drop in crime year to date in Osborne, and that's largely due to this AmeriCorps program. It works. So we got a call back from the AmeriCorps folks last week. They're enhancing the program in Michigan, and they're making it a part of their national program. It works. And it's really cool because it involves that. And then was able to secure from Kresge and Skillman an additional $2.7 million to keep this program rolling for another 2-3 years. And we'll move this into other neighborhoods in the city of Detroit. So we have all this activity now, and this is the reason why I have this activity. One of these areas we can drill down into looks like this. This is Base Bagley in Bethune. Here's Marygrove College, and here is UD Mercy. Marygrove College right there, UD Mercy, right? When you drive through this area, it doesn't feel that bad. In fact, it feels pretty stable. We came in there with demolition funds, and we found out that we did not have to demolish too much of anything there. In fact, the community was upset that we were even in there in the first place talking about tearing down anything. There was maybe 1 or 2 houses there that really needed to come down were eyesores for the community. But when you look at the community different, this is the property crime from in 2013. Again, when you drive through this stuff, you don't feel it. 2013, that's property crime. That's just larceny, auto thefts, burglary, you know. Here's the violent crime for the area. Now, when we first saw the violent crime, we thought it was a mistake on this thing. We said, this can't be happening here. But when you do that, you discover a lot of things. Now, when we showed the residents this, their eyes opened up. Because typically residents will just kind of retreat in their own, but when they see that, they realize they have an issue. And they want to fix this picture. They don't want this thing. Our goal was in these little circles around the schools, that's a half-mile radius, that we clear all this stuff out. When you come closer to a school, you should feel like you're entering a different area. That's what we want. It should be, you should feel like you're entering. Now, you don't have to even see any signs. You know, when you're traveling in Detroit, I just use Detroit as an example, and you're up Jefferson, and you're traveling east on Jefferson, and you get ready to go into the Grosse Pointes. How many people are familiar with that trip? Okay. You don't need to see a sign that says you're entering Grosse Pointe. You know it's different. It's lit. Everything is cut. It looks real clean and nice. And you automatically do what I do, automatically slow down. There has to be a cop somewhere around here. No offense to my friends in public safety here. But that's how it feels. That's the change in the community. And if you can't create pockets of quality like that, no matter, you don't have to have the fancy restaurants and all the glitzy stuff. You can just create pockets of quality, and you begin to ripple that out. And that's what we're seeing through this program. Let's see if I can wrap this thing up and take some questions. Oh, I wanted to show you this. Most of our urban cities, including Muskegon, when people return from corrections, they end up back in your urban centers. They do. This is the probationers and the parolees in the area I showed you. Now, we know at the state of Michigan that only 25% of that population, when they come out, will be able to get gainful employment. If they're not connected to services or other extended family, folks around them that can keep them out of doing bad things, we know that 75% are at risk of committing another crime. You can predict crime. And most of the things we're seeing with this CompStat data is just not the new people who are coming online. You're not like creating new criminals. These criminals who have been doing crime just are doing it over and over and over again. Okay? So we have to fix this thing. So that ties in workforce development, it ties in education. It's just not about economic development. When you do the Venn diagram on this, all this stuff overlaps with each other. Osborne, the same thing. Osborne, I talked about Osborne. And we're not going to go too much in it. I'll flip through this real quick here. So we're doing a workforce development strategy. The idea here is most workforce development programs cast a wide net across the city. I wanted to measure the impact of workforce development, because if I can't get that fixed, then I can't get that bubble clean of crime and can't get it well lit in the whole nine. So I got to get these folks jobs. So I wanted a workforce development agency to come in and solely focus in on the Osborne area. I don't care about the neighboring community. If you're a resident of Osborne, you're going to be eligible to go to that particular workforce development program. They will train you and place you. That's how we're measuring it. And they tell me they can train 300 individuals a year, fine, and place 70% of that population, then that's what we're going to pay you for. You don't play 70%, you get less. And we're trying to set up a program pretty much how Midtown did it. Midtown had something called Live Midtown, Buy Midtown. That meant that if you were a resident of if you worked at either Wayne State University, Henry Ford Health Systems, or the Detroit Medical Center, you were eligible for a $25,000 forgivable loan on a home if you lived in Midtown. You qualify for that. The program ran out of money in this first year. And all of a sudden we saw a turn in the population. So we were saying to these residents, okay, what can we do something like the Midtown strategy, Live By strategy? What I wanted to do with them is say, okay, your training, the training that we were setting up cost about $5,000 per person to train them. So I wanted to make this proposal to the folks who are being trained. You're going to owe 50% of that back after the first year of getting your job. However, if you decide to stay in your neighborhood in this area, for the first year, we forgive half of that 50%. And if you stay for 2 years, it's wiped off. Because what happens with training, and at least in the city of Detroit, and haven't looked at what goes on here, is that if I can take a person who is making a certain wage and train them and they're making a higher wage, they'll leave the community. And the problem with leaving the community is that you just left the problem lying there. People need to see success. We need to see the tax base stay in the city. City of Detroit is that if you earn $30,000 a day, and if you go from $0 to $30,000 a day, you will move outside the city of Detroit. And you can't improve unemployment rates in your city when you're losing residency, because unemployment is tied to residency. So you can live in Farmington Hills and work in the city of Detroit, but it only impacts and benefits the Farmington Hills unemployment rate. And you can really retain, and I was telling the governor, we're doing a lot of good things, but if people are not living in the city of Detroit, we can look up all the good things you've done and you still have the same unemployment rate in the city. And that's not a good thing. So moving forward, quality of life Venn diagram, this is the measure that we looked at. It has to have an environmental, ecological, and also social impact. We have to look at all three in order to define quality of life for any of the programs that we're running. So, in conclusion, you got to understand this thing at 30,000 feet. You got to boil something, you got to adjust your angle of attack, and don't take on something too big without being able to communicate success in the past. This is a picture of Mount Everest. I showed you a bunch of pictures. I like pictures like this. You know, Mount Everest is almost 30,000 feet above sea level, and it's very difficult to climb. However, you know, whatever path you take, you know, and folks, if you read anything about Mount Everest and the climbers and difficulties in terms of having to base camp 1, 2, 3, all that, to get to the top, it's possible because this guy did it. And as a result of him doing it, I think we can take the problems in our communities, as long as we work together, find that path of success, stay on the path, don't try to take on something too big. Because if you just look at Mount Everest, you get depressed, right? It's one step at a time on a trail and a path that gets you there. As long as you measure it, you can overcome it. So thank you very much for having me as your speaker. Questions? Okay, they told me I can take a couple of questions and keep this ball rolling. Yes, sir, way in the back.
Does the good work of the prior administration. So if you put these programs and policies in place, what keeps the next administration that comes in from doing what you're doing now?
Because we put all the measures, keep in mind,
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, I'm sorry. He stated the question. He said that I started out my talk by saying the next administration that comes in usually undoes the things that the following the prior administration did, right? So they unwrap the stuff and repackage it or just get rid of it altogether. And how do you prevent that from happening? What we did, we developed these focus areas and we put metrics in the focus areas, data points. And we embedded those data points in each one of the departments. It's reverse engineer. If I wanted to recreate this urban agenda 10 years from now, as long as those data points are being tracked in the departments, I can gather that information, reassemble it. I don't have to put a bow over it and call it something neat, like the Cool Cities Initiative or something like that. Because that's the target. People say, the Cool Cities Initiative, we're going to get rid of the Cool Cities Initiative. It's not about the title, it's about the data. So as long as I can reassemble the data that makes sense, that tells the story, the urban agenda is here, okay? So we would shame ourselves if 30 years from now, the administration that's running the state of Michigan finds a document that the Snyder administration has and say, look, all we have to do is replace 20% of this document and we still have the same problems. We can't do that anymore. That's dumb. So the governor is who's a CPA. He's all data driven. So we had spreadsheets and everything. So all this stuff is there. We're embedding that. We have I think we probably have about 50% of the data stuff that we want embedded in the departments today. And before this administration is done, all of it will be. So that's how we do it. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Detroit is far and away the biggest urban area in our state right now. It's not the only one with a pressing challenge. Right now, the most urgent thing in the city of Flint is the water crisis that's going on, and I wonder if you have any insight on that.
It's about the Flint water crisis, you guys. I don't have to repeat it. I have a lot of insight on that. The governor appointed me as the lead for his office to actually resolve this issue in Flint. So I've lost a lot of sleep, if you can't tell. And I think I even talked to the mayor here, and I mentioned something about Flint, and I said, oh, well, Flint is, no, you're Muskegon. Muskegon Heights, actually. Flint, the way I can describe this, it is a breakdown of government on all levels. That's basically what it is. And for a governor to apologize for an action, that takes quite a bit. The community had been complaining about a number of things in their city, and the residents have every right to be angry, upset, frustrated, and just arms both up in the sky. You know, they have a right to feel that way because they've been talking about it the whole time. The unfortunate reality is that the administration also has been referring things. Now, so I sat down in the majority of the meetings with these residents. I would bring them up to Lansing. I would have DEQ in the room with them, and our Department of Health and Human Services right in the room. They will give information, data, and we're thinking, okay, this is state government. So the governor hires people to do a job. You don't micromanage state government. The President of the United States doesn't micromanage the federal government. You put people in place to do a job, and when we're told information, we have to believe the people who we fired, only to find out that what we were being told was not necessarily clear either. So people lost their jobs, and there's still an investigation. The U.S. Attorney General's office is in town doing it right now, and our Attorney General as well. So while we're trying to figure out what went wrong, the backdrop of the story is that Flint decided to build a new pipe. This is before we had them in emergency management. The vote was finally taken while they were in emergency management. The council voted in a 7-1 decision to leave the Detroit water system and to build their own pipeline down from, called the Carolina pipeline. Only to discover, when we got really into this, after all this stuff happened, that the two intake valves are both in Lake Huron and they're only 3 miles apart from each other. It made no sense at all. Why would you build a separate pipeline? So they're in the process of building pipeline. Detroit sends them a letter once the vote was taken that a year from now we're shutting you off. They've been on Detroit for decades, and Detroit's losing a major customer. So they held true to their word and they proceeded to shut them off. But everyone knows in the room that if I have to use you for a period of time when I'm not going to be your long-term customer, if I come back to you, what the price is going to be. And that essentially what it was. Flint, at that time, was in fiscal distress. They were cash-strapped and broke. Flint River has always been a backup source of water. So had Detroit ever shut down in any point of its history, the residents in the city of Flint will be using the Flint River as a backup. It's always been that way. So did the council, and not council, so the decision was made to use it as a backup source. Let's use it for what it was intended to be. And the water was undertreated. It was undertreated. And that's the unfortunate reality. So now we have people with lead issues in their water. We have outside signs. We lost all credibility in the city of Flint with our departments. They're not credible. They can't come in and say the water's safe. So we are working with Dr. Mark Edwards from Virginia Tech to basically validate the safety of the water. The governor created by an executive order an interagency coordinating council that involves 5 major departments and subject matter experts. That includes Dr. Tisha, who was the one who released the study from Hurley Hospital, and also Dr. Mark Edwards, and also Dr. Laura Sutherland, who is with the Kettering University, who is a chemical engineer, who basically talked about the corrosive effect on water and how, if you don't treat it right, you do have metals in the water leaking through. So we have a broad team together. The governor declared it an emergency, which means that the Emergency Operational Center, pretty much if you had a hurricane or a flood, is currently operating. They're distributing from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Water filters, testing kits, replacement cartridges for those filters. They're doing that on a continuum now. So so the city their needs are being addressed. At the same time, because we're back on the Great Lakes Water Authority until the Carolina system is built out, the lead levels have dropped. But that's not good enough, because the governor, if you've been paying attention to the news, announced that there are spikes in Legionnaire's disease as well, in the whole thing, during the period of time that they were on the Flint River. And so this is indicative so the departments, what they do, they get in their silos, and this is typical of state and federal government. There's no better silo system than you'll find in the world than state government or federal government. They operate within their silos trying to solve and fix the problem, but didn't cross-communicate. So the Department of DEQ found that it was high lead, or they showed elevated levels of lead. They should have automatically, by protocol, called the Department of Health and Human Services and said, get those kids tested today. That didn't happen. On the Legionnaire's part of it, when that was discovered from the Genesee County Health Department that there's Legionnaire and the state knew about it, they should have communicated to the Department of DEQ, get the water checked out over there. And that stuff didn't happen. So by the time we're done with this, in the next few months, that's going to happen with these departments. We're going to have to set up protocols where you are accountable if you don't do those cross communications. So we're in the process right now. We got a long road ahead of us in Flint. We have a credibility issue in Flint. Flint has a growth strategy. I'm all into economic growth and population growth, and I can't attract a person to live in Flint because of this issue. So we have a long road ahead of us in Flint, and we're going to get through it. And folks who don't want to participate on it, well, they just have to find some other place to work. That's essentially where we are right now. I saw a hand way in the back, and then I saw a hand right there. Oh, one more.
Then we got to wrap it up. What would it cost to treat the water per day?
What would it cost to treat the water properly per day? Yeah, to treat the water properly didn't cost that much, per day. I don't have a figure for you, but it's not $1 million per day to treat the water properly. Flint uses about 14 to 60 million gallons of water a day. And for treatment of the water in their treatment facility, it doesn't cost that much. Their protocols for treating the water were not up to standards, and someone dropped the ball there. And when we're being told that these are isolated incidents of lead lines going to homes, and don't worry about it, the water's safe, that's a big problem for the administration too. So a lot of this stuff will come out, and hopefully we'll be able to have some more information for you.
Dr. Stevenson.
Yeah, good morning. Just switch gears on a positive note. When you leave today, we ask you all to be champions of the Muskegon Area Promise. And if you do not get one, go to our website. But it is a reality, and we are going to send kids to college. As a former resident of Kalamazoo Public Schools, and seeing the changes that Kalamazoo, I believe that this will ignite a cultural change here from Muskegon. And we're very, very excited. We'll have a news conference today at 2. I know Dr. Desbury mentioned that, but we're very proud of the community, the funders who supported this initiative, and it is a reality. So, and maybe on a positive note, and thank you for mentioning the promise as well, sir.
Yeah, well, thank you for ending on a positive note. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure to be in this room with you all today. Very impressive how you all come together with this breakfast. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and thank you for having me.
I have a few, probably about 2 minutes of announcements, if you could bear with me. First of all, we would like to thank Mr. Hollins for sharing his morning with us. We would like to acknowledge all of our sponsors. Howmet, Whitehall, Alcoa, Howmet, Whitehall Operations, City of Muskegon, the MAISD, Community Foundation of Muskegon County, Baker College, Mercy Health Partners, Williams Hughes Attorneys at Law, Muskegon Community College. We also have media sponsors, MLive, Muskegon Chronicle, the Muskegon Tribune, Midwest Business Alliance Journal, 103.7 The Beat, V100, and 100.9. Let's give them a round of applause. The USS Silverside is accepting nominations for honoring our Veterans Dinner. They are looking for African American veterans who made a contribution in Muskegon County. Please contact the USS Silverside Museum for more information. This dinner will take place on March 16th, 2016 at 5:30. MCC is also hosting Black History activities for the month of February. Mary Williams will be standing at the door passing out information. We are returning Love in Action. I know a lot of you remember Love in Action, so we would like for you to participate. Please see our website or collect the information from Ms. Williams. Again, we would like to thank our sponsors, and we would like to thank you for sharing your morning. And we hope that we see you at the part 2, which will take place at Baker, the round table. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, and I'll return this to Mr. Hollins.
So you know you have to live with the people that you work with, and I kick myself because the person, Ann Armstrong, you can stand up, she's with the governor's office, she's on our team. And she's based in Grand Rapids, but her area is Muskegon, Hollins, this whole area. So if you have issues or concerns, if you want to work with the governors, you get a hold of this person. She's very good at what she does. Yeah, and I do apologize, Ann, for not recognizing you. I guess we're done. We're done. Okay.